The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Let's get this going up there. All right. I am. I hope I'm recording. How would I know, Peter? I did.
Oh, you did. So
I did. Even though it's not elapsing anything.
Yeah, that's
Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for coming today. We're very pleased to have Dr. Julia Crane here to give an interview and her seminar for the Extension Assistant Professor position here at the station for plant pathology. Just to give you a little background on Dr. Crane, she actually has 2 bachelor's degrees, one in environmental science and policy and one in anthropology. Both of these were obtained from the University of Maryland at College Park. And she is a recent graduate of Cornell, getting her PhD in plant pathology and plant microbiology. So Cornell, lots of Cornell folks. So we're really excited to have her here and hear some of the work that she has been doing and hear about some of her thoughts, given the opportunity to come work here at the Cranberry Station. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. So thanks for having me here. So I'm going to take you now for a ride through my career, past, present, and potentially future. So here's an outline of my talk. I'm first going to talk about my PhD research on biological control agents. Then I'll tell you about the current work that I'm doing, developing molecular diagnostics for plant pathogens. Finally, I'll switch to cranberries and some proposed work that I've been doing. So for my PhD, I was looking at the ecology of a bacterial biological control agent. This bacteria was in the genus Bacillus, and we were using it to control a wheat fungal disease. And the background on this work was that this biocontrol agent was working really well at controlling disease in the greenhouse, but not in the field. So I was trying to understand why by looking at its ecology on plant surfaces and bulk environments. And even though I was working on wheat, I think that the lessons that I learned could be applied to other systems as well. So this PhD was a collaborative project between myself and my PhD advisor, Gary Bergstrom, who's a field crops pathologist at Donna Gibson, who's a natural products chemist at the USDA area, and then Dr. Frodema, who's at Novozymes Biologicals, which is a company specializing in biopesticide production. And I really liked working in this collaborative environment, and that's something that I'd like to continue with. So first, to define biological control. It's a means of reducing or mitigating pests and pest effects through natural methods. It's environmentally safe, and it can be used in organic agriculture. It can be used as an alternative or as a supplement to chemical control. And it might have some other beneficial plant health effects aside from just reducing disease. So I like to think of it as spraying down this little army of bacteria that go in and get my pathogen on the plant surface. So I mentioned that we work with Bacillus, and there are a few aspects of Bacillus that make it really good as, or potentially good as a biocontrol agent. Bacillus is kind of unique among bacteria in that it can form spores, which are kind of like dormant resting structures that make it able to survive in the environment for long periods of time in a dormant state. So, and in this state, it can be really resistant to harsh environmental conditions like heat or UV. So it has long-term durability in the environment. Bacillus also produces a range of antifungal compounds that have broad antifungal activities. So here's the pathogen that we work on growing without Bacillus. And here's that pathogen surrounded by a ring of the biocontrol agent. And you can see that its growth is really inhibited. So it produces antifungal compounds. One species of bacillus is considered a model organism among bacteria. So there's a lot of information that has already been discovered about its physiology. So there's a lot that we can draw upon when developing these organisms as biocontrol agents. So the pathogen that we work on is Fusarium penblite. It's a fungal pathogen, and it affects the above ground portions of plants. So to prevent this disease, we try to spray the biocontrol agent on the surface. The fungus, when the fungus infects grain, it makes the grain shrivel up. So this can lead to yield losses. And the grain also has high levels of a toxin that's produced by the fungus. And this can cause animals or people to throw up. And I just like this picture, so I put it like but, so for this reason, it's referred to as a vomit toxin. And for this disease, there are limited management options available. So there are restrictions on when fungicides can be applied. There aren't any completely resistant varieties available. Some of the cultural methods are really variable from one environment to another. So there's a place potentially for biocontrol in the system. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, this biocontrol agent is not giving us good disease control. So I was trying to figure out why. So the first question that I asked was, is there something about the bacillus populations or the compounds that they produce on plant surfaces over time that's making it not be able to be effective in field settings? So I looked at the levels of these populations and compounds over time on plant surfaces in both the greenhouse and in the field. And so looking first at the population levels. So these top lines here are the level of bacillus population on plants that were sprayed with bacillus. And so as you can see, the levels are actually pretty stable over time. And in the field, they're even stable up to 43 days after application. So that's a good sign for us, especially because this disease can infect for a period of 2 weeks. And the level of the bacillus on these treated plants is pretty high. It's significantly higher than on non-treated plants. So it seems as though these populations are probably not what's limiting disease control. But then I looked at the compounds. So these are those antifungal compounds that are really important for disease control. And I found that in both the greenhouse and in the field, the levels of these compounds went down pretty rapidly, so within 3 days. And that was the case even though there are these bacillus populations. So we apply this biocontrol organism as a combination of compounds and cells. And so that's why we're having this initial high level of compounds there. But the fact that the level of compounds is decreasing even though the cells are there indicates that this bacteria isn't able to produce more of the compounds on plant surfaces. Probably because it's in that dormant spore form on plant surfaces. Even though it's there and it's alive, it's not really doing anything. It's not being active. So the first thing that we tried to do was to see if we can activate those dormant cells to get them into a more active form where they could produce more compounds. And so these are those dormant cells, they're spores. And this is a culture that has both those dormant cells and these actively grown vegetative cells. And so here's the concept, is that we would apply, just in our normal inoculum, it's a combination of so initially these levels, both types are present on wheat surfaces, and the metabolite levels are high. But then as time goes on, these cells transition to the spore form, and they're not active anymore. So we looked through different stimulants to see if we could apply one of these stimulants to activate the cells to these more active. So I did a bunch of in vitro assays to screen through potential stimulants, and I found a few that gave us that were able to activate these cells in vivo. But then I also had to look at whether or not they were able to activate them on the plant surface. So that's what I was doing here. These are the results from two different trials where I either applied the stimulant or no stimulant, and then I looked at the percent of cells that are in the active or not active before or after that treatment. So you can see that even with no stimulant applied, some of the cells are able to transition to the active form. But when we apply the stimulant, we get a lot of these cells transitioning to the active form. So this might be one way we could potentially get these cells to give us better disease control. And this is just one little part of the story. And I'm not going to go into the rest of it, but you can talk about it afterwards if you're interested. And then we also just recently published it in the Journal of Applied Microbiology. Okay, so one way that we're trying to deal with those low compound levels was by activating the cells to produce more compound. But another thing that we tried was to apply the biocontrol agent multiple times, just to kind of manually force these levels to be higher. So in field experiments, I applied the bacillus either once or 3 times to see the effect on disease control. And what I found was that applying bacillus multiple times did give us improved disease control. So this is looking here at the visual disease symptoms and also that vomitoxin in green. And we found that when bacillus is applied just one time, it does not give us significant disease control. But bacillus that's applied 3 times does, probably because we were maintaining these higher metabolite levels. So unfortunately, this isn't a very feasible solution in field crops because it's just not financially viable for a lot of growers to go out multiple times spraying their fields with these biocontrol agents. But in some higher value crops, it might be a solution. So next I wanted to see if disease control by bacillus is influenced by the amount of bacillus cells or metabolites that are there. So I took my bacillus inoculum and then I diluted it by 10 and 100-fold, and I looked at the impact on disease control in a greenhouse experiment, or in replicated greenhouse experiments. So here's just visually what it looks like with my little bacteria army, 10 and then 100-fold. And so I found that bacillus is most successful when it's applied at high doses, and that even a 10-fold dilution in bacillus no longer gave us good disease control. So it was no longer significantly different than plants that were not treated. So this a similar result was found in some in vitro experiments where we had the fungal pathogen growing on the surface of the plate, and then we had these wells that have different concentrations of the bacillus compound in them. And these compounds are diluted by 2-fold each time. So you can just kind of visually see that with each 2-fold dilution, we're getting a decrease in the amount of fungal imposition. And so I put this here just to show you this is the commercially available fungicide for this disease, to show you that there's a pretty big difference in how much that's able to inhibit this fungus compared to biocontrol agent. So if we were to try to compete with chemical fungicides, we would need to be able to get a more active product. know that there's this dose-dependent relationship between the biocontrol agent and how much disease we're getting. But that's kind of bad news if you look at how much inoculum is actually being delivered to plants when we spray them in the field. So I measured the volume of inoculum that's reaching plants sprayed with a commercial sprayer in field settings versus what we do in the greenhouse. And I found that there is a 2 order of magnitude difference between the volume that was reaching plants with a commercial sprayer versus in the greenhouse. And here that is visually. This is our inoculum that's been mixed with the fluorescent tracer dye, and then applied to plants using our normal protocol either in the greenhouse or in the field. And you can see that there's this really big difference in how much inoculum is reaching plants in these environments. And so considering the fact that there's this dose-dependent relationship between biocontrol agent and disease control, this could be a really big problem. It's especially a big problem because we found that the biocontrol agent isn't able to diffuse across plant surfaces. So once it's sprayed onto a plant, it just kind of stays where it lands and it doesn't move around at all. So this is the bacteria in green on a plant surface, and the fungus, when it's in direct contact with the bacteria, the fungus, which is red, it isn't able to germinate. But when you look at the fungus just right outside of this droplet of bacteria, the fungus is able to germinate really well, indicating that the bacillus cells and compounds aren't able to move outside of this area. So considering the fact that there's so many open areas on these plants and that the bacillus can't move from where it's landed, this difference in the deposition could be a really big issue. So in summary for my PhD work, I identified the limitations and opportunities for biocontrol. And I looked at metabolite levels, I looked at that dormant spore form on plant surfaces, I looked at delivery volume, and I found that this biocontrol agent might have the most promise in a high value crop, where you can apply the biocontrol agent multiple times. It also would have the most promise against a disease with a really predictable or narrow infection window, where you can apply the biocontrol agent right before you know the pathogen is supposed to attack, and then those compound levels would still be high enough to give you good disease control. So in general, what I did for this project was I investigated the reasons behind a phenomenon that I observed, using a variety of skills in the lab, including microscopy, isolating microbes from plant surfaces and quantifying them, in vitro inhibition assays, and also molecular biology. So now for my current work. A recent development is that I've started working with my former PhD advisor and then also with Cornell's plant disease diagnostic on developing molecular detection methods for identifying and detecting pathogens from plant surfaces. So the kind of old school way of identifying plant pathogens often involves a significant culturing step. So you lay out the pathogen and you wait for something distinctive to happen. Like for a lot of fungi, you wait for it to produce a certain structure that's distinctive of one pathogen to another. And while these types of methods can have a lot of value, they can also take a lot of time and a lot of space and energy. This is one of my lab mates taking on this place. So the newer way of detecting these pathogens is molecular techniques. And so this is taking advantage of the fact that the DNA of different microbes has regions in it that are distinctive either the sequence is different for that microbe, or the length of the region is indicative of what it is, or just the presence or absence of that region is dependent. So by honing in on these distinctive regions, you can identify what's there. Some of the advantages of this would be that it can take a shorter amount of time as opposed to a culturing method. And it can also identify pathogens that aren't able to grow in culture, because all you're doing is you're detecting their DNA straight from plant surface. And so ideally, I would say that a combination of these two methods would be useful in the diagnostic. So the first project that I'm working on is detecting a fungal pathogen from oak trees. And this pathogen causes the disease oak wilt, and it's a rising problem in New York. And so the diagnostic clinic thinks that it's going to get a lot of samples in the future that might have this pathogen, so they want to be able to screen them pretty quickly. So I'm developing a conventional PCR method to detect this pathogen straight from oak branches. The next project that I'm working on is with Phytophthora. And so the diagnostic clinic has been looking for Phytophthora ramorum in plant samples, which causes sudden oak death. And that pathogen, they've collected a bunch of environmental samples from trees and water and soil, and been testing them for that pathogen. But along the way, they've detected a bunch of other Phytophoras that are there that aren't and they just don't know what they are. So they want to find a way to identify those other Phytophoras in the environment. They're especially interested in seeing if Phytophthora carnoviae is there. And this is a new pathogen that's even more aggressive than Phytophthora. So it would be good to see if it's in our environment already. So what I'm doing for this project is I'm coming up with a protocol to sequence these unknown Phytophoras from these soil and water and plant samples, so that we can identify it there. The last project that I'm working on is with my former PhD advisor, and that's working with these vomitoxin producers, the same fungus that I was working on for my PhD. So this fungus, there's 3 different types of vomitoxin that it can produce, and the type that it produces depends on this region in its DNA. So you can look at its DNA to figure out which type of toxin it can produce. So we're developing a quantitative PCR method to make us able to tell what relative amount of these different toxin producers are on plant samples. So I've also been involved in some teaching and extension activities. So as a grad student, I was a teaching assistant in Cornell's introductory plant ecology class. And then my PhD advisor had a pretty significant extension responsibility, so I went with her to a bunch of large and small scale extension meetings. I've also been working with him on developing some multi-barley extension materials. So New York is trying to become the #1 local brew state, and the big part of being able to do that is growing malting barley in New York. But nobody's really growing it right now, so we're trying to figure out what information we can give to growers about how to manage malting barley. And then I've also been volunteering with Cornell Cooperative Extension, and that's mostly on events that they've had for the general public, just trying to get them informed and excited about agriculture. Okay, so now for some proposed cranberry projects. And this is me at a Chicago bog, and it's a natural cranberry bog in upstate New York. And before I start, I'd just like to say that I'm coming to this with the perspective of a plant pathologist, and it's based on what I've read online and with the phone chat that I had with Dr. Caruso when I was thinking applying to this job. If I were to be offered this job, I would make sure to talk to growers both individually and in growers meetings, and also to extension professionals working with growers to make sure that the projects that I'm working on are really meeting the top needs of the grower community. I really see you guys as the experts in practical cranberry production, and that you have the most hands-on experience with these diseases. And I'm really excited to learn from you. But it will be a learning process. But I feel like with my plant pathology background and your practical know-how, that we can make a difference with these. So my understanding is that money is really tight right now for a lot of growers, and that they're looking for ways to cut back on some of the traditional methods that they've relied upon for cranberry management. I also understand that a lot of these cranberry diseases have the problem that they compound over time, especially in the absence of management. So it seems like a really important priority would be to look at the effect of these minimal management strategies on disease control over time, and incorporating economic cost-benefit analysis. I also understand that there are some new hybrids that have been released recently, and that there's still a lot that's not known about their susceptibilities to different cranberry diseases. So figuring out what diseases they are susceptible to, and then what rates of fungicides can be used on those is another thing that I would look at, as well as looking at some new fruit rot formulations that have been released recently. So I also understand that the fruit rot pathogen community is really complex, and that there's a lot that still needs to be learned about the life cycles of a number of these pathogens. It's my understanding that there's already an ongoing effort to look at these life cycles, especially by Dr. Ruderman. So I would reach out to him to see how I could contribute to that effort, be it through microscopy, sampling, culturing, or developing molecular methods of detecting these pathogens. And I think that developing these molecular diagnostics would be one way that I could contribute to this cranberry disease detection and identification in general. So as I mentioned, these diagnostics are able to give us a high throughput evaluation of whether or not a pathogen is in a plant, but then also to what extent it's colonizing the plant. So it opens up new options for diagnostics and for research. And so some of the sequence available is already available for a number of these pathogens that I could use to develop some of these techniques. And I would potentially use the resources at the Genomics Resource Lab in Amherst, and then I would talk more to Nick about how we could work out some kind of collaboration. So the fruit rot community sounds really complicated. I was reading that, I was like, whoa, you guys, but so I think that there's a lot that we can still learn about its the community and how it changes, especially relative to our management strategies. So looking at the effect on the community of applying these more narrow range fungicides, either the fungicides that are knocking down the most predominant members, but then also the members that are least predominant. Like say if you target a fungicide incorrectly at the wrong group of community members. So looking at how that changes the community. Also seeing if there are any of our cultural practices that might be introducing or spreading the ammonia around. Looking at pathogens in irrigation water is a really big area way that I could look at if we're unintentionally spreading some of these pathogens. And then also, I know that there's been a good deal of work on figuring out what pathogens are in diseased versus non-diseased fruits. But to my understanding, that's mostly based on culturing and just like a yes/no analysis of is this pathogen here or is it not here? But if I could use quantitative PCR to look at these problems, then we can say not only is this pathogen here, but it's here to a greater extent than another community member. And so this might give us more insight into which of these fruit rot community members are most responsible for disease. So precision agriculture is also really big right now, and I would say with good reason. It gives growers the ability to know exactly what the climate is like in their precise beds, rather than having to rely on forecasts that are made based on data from a regional weather station. So I think, I don't know if this is already being done in cranberries or people would even be interested in it, but it's something that I could look at is using some of these in-bed climate sensors to see if it could help us better predict which fungicides we should use. There are also some other applications, like they can tell you wind speed, so you would know whether or not it might be a good day to spray or not. They also, some of them have infrared cameras that can detect plant stress even before you can see it with your eye. This might tell you about some like drainage issues. So also doing a spatial analysis within a cranberry bed of which pathogens are there in that bed and to what quantity are they there relative to different drainage or other conditions, soil and plant conditions. And I know that there's already some work being done doing this spatial analysis, but I think that I could contribute some biological data to this project. So my understanding is that the causal agent for fairy ring has recently been identified. And again, it's really complicated, but I don't know what it is. Complicated diseases. But so it goes from being a pathogen on cranberries to being a pathogen on another fungus, which itself is a pathogen. So there's a lot of different questions that we could ask about this disease cycle that could help us determine at what point in the cycle we could apply control measures to give us the best disease management. And again, this is something that I know Dr. Udermans might be looking at, so I reached out to him to see in what ways I could contribute to that project. So now on to upright dieback. My understanding is that Dr. Russo had a grad student who developed some methods for inoculating plants in a greenhouse or tissue culture setting. And I also, from what I've read, it sounds like this disease varies with plant stress, but that the source of this plant stress, or the relative contribution of like drought stress or nutrient stress might not necessarily be known. So I plan to do some controlled experiments looking at which of these stresses might contribute most to high disease. I would also look for some new or re-emerging diseases, just through scouting efforts. So including false blossom and then some viral diseases. Also see if we could get any impact on beneficial organisms. I think I would have given up on this already after my PhD, but I'm still kind of trying. So mycorrhizal fungi have been isolated from cranberry beds in other parts of the U.S. And these fungi can have that's something that I could look at and then see if they're giving us any improvements in plant health, especially nutrient uptake and disease management. So I know there's been some work done of biocontrol, and that none of it seems that promising. But I would just talk to people and see if there's any, loose ends that might need to be tied up on those projects. And I think that especially using these non-pathogenic endophytes would be a good option for controlling endophytic diseases, where the fungicide applications might not be able to reach them inside the plant with these other microbes. And then again, I know that Dr. Caruso has done some work on biocontrol and that it didn't really work out, but I don't know the state of this project, so I would just see if there's anything I can do. So then finally, people are able now to look at microbes, that the succession of microbes in soil and plant environments over time, using a metagenomic approach. So looking at what organisms were there based on their DNA. And so the information we can get from this is you can see how different cultural practices are affecting either pathogens coming in or beneficial organisms controlling those diseases. And you can look at the succession over time of these microbes. And this is a project that I wouldn't be able to do myself. I would have to rely on collaboration with people, maybe at UMass Amherst, who has the necessary expertise for this type of project. But I could potentially work something out with them. They could get some alternative types of more basic research on it. So then, in terms of grower education, so I love to participate in field days, at meetings with the Cape Cod cranberry growers and Ocean Spray. I put together online and print educational materials. I know some extension professionals are using blogs now, so that's something I could do. Also social media, like a Facebook page. I didn't see a Facebook page for the cranberry station.
You can make it.
I can make it.
Casey tweets though.
Yeah, well, so Twitter seems like it's a way for people to give like real-time updates to growers about what they might think they should do. So it's something that I could do also, and it would be me trying different things and seeing what works best, and talking to people to see what works best for them. Some other contributions would be my connections, my Cornell, the USDA, through the company that I collaborated with the university. And then also, I have an interest in supporting females in science and agriculture.
Yeah, we're trying to.
I didn't realize you guys were talking about that. So I would, but I think I'm a positive example of lady in science and agriculture. So I would, look for ways to support younger girls who are pursuing these
Us too.
Let's
stick together.
That'd be similar for men.
we got like a joint, yeah.
You'll do it. Be a positive role model.
Yeah. Some collaborations. Obviously, I'd love to work with everyone at the cranberry station. The folks at the UMass Diagnostic Lab and Rutgers. Everyone at the Cape Cod Cranberry Growers Association and Ocean Spray. And then Dr. McManus and Dr. Schilder. And basically anyone else who wants to work there.
You're gonna do your second week.
And then finally, so I don't know if you remember, my last name is Queen, and I was just pleasure reading through the Cranberry Growers Association website, and I saw that cranberries used to be called cranberry. Still didn't do that. So that's it.
Great, thank you.
Back to your PhD work.
Yeah,
So it occurs naturally in the environment,
it does, although it's mostly a soil organism.
mostly soil organisms.
Yeah, so that was one of our big things with that. Probably it would be best as a soil biosecurity. And it is pretty successful as a soil biosecurity.
So do you think it occurs in every soil?
It might.
One of the things that some of us have observed, one of the big issues for us now is the rot at harvest in the field that we develop. And yet, I know that in early times, 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago, field rot was not a big issue. Rot and storage was an issue. And it may have a lot to do with the way we harvest. If you go out on the outtake to the wild dogs, you don't see field rot. The often the pathogens are out there,
Yeah,
but nothing's taking place.
Yeah.
I've often wondered what's the connection?
right. It could be. I mean, definitely managing a field in a very intensive way can change the community of microbes there. So it could be a single microbe or like a whole community of microbes that are.
And the second part of my question is that we have this cultural thing that we do in the springtime. We hold water on the cranberry bogs from April 15th to May 15th. And when we hold water in that period, we don't have so much problems with fungal infection. But the connections between what's taking place during that time and what takes place after, we really don't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that would definitely be something to look into. Yeah. I guess I just don't know if it's similar system that does that type of flooding.
We're doing
You
one.
know,
Yeah.
so it's hard to like.
Yeah, the presumption has always been that because it shifts the phenology of the cranberry plant, that it puts it out of sync with the fungal pathogens, but we really don't know.
We don't know.
It's kind of a presumption.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely something that would be worthwhile.
But Jeff?
In your PhD work, you mentioned
Yeah.
about the multiple applications of bacillus and being more effective, but yet
Right.
ineffective on
Field crops. Yeah.
Did you do any economic analysis of whether or not even using bacillus is economically viable?
So I didn't do the analysis, but even without it, I would want to say it's I mean, compared to fungicide, I mean, especially compared to fungicide, it's not that effective. Even with multiple applications, so the government regulates how much of that toxin can be in grain, the vomitoxin, and even with the best applications of bacillus, like the multiple applications, we're still not really getting below that threshold. It's a pretty low threshold, but maybe with the reason we don't want to make it all the time. But so yeah, so I would say that unless I guess the caveat to this was that so I was working with a non-formulated biocontrol agent, which is something that was found in our lab and we're like, oh, it works sometimes, like, great, let's look at it. But it's possible that a company can take it and formulate it in such a way that it would be more economically viable, just through spreaders and stickers.
Just curious, going back again to that thought, you talked a little bit about how in the application process stuff didn't diffuse, therefore you didn't get the coverage.
Yeah.
So that seems to be an inhibition to the capabilities of that work.
Right.
So what are your thoughts in terms of looking at different forms of application and the efficacy of that application in your work, and going back to some of that, even the stuff you were doing for your PhD?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think adding in some of those adjuvants would made a difference. I just kind of ran out of time. Like my money ran out, so
School.
but yeah, I mean, I think it's something that the companies are looking at. The only thing is that then if you make it so diffuse, then it might not have a high enough concentration to be inhibitory. So I think having a combination of being able to diffuse and being really concentrated makes
But in terms of doing, if you were to come here and do work, it seems to me that the science of application itself needs to be incorporated with your work very closely.
I mean, I think that I was just responding to the challenges of the
Sure.
project I was working on, which is why I went that route. I don't have to do that, but I think if it's applicable to these problems, then it's something that I can do again. And a lot of the work, it was really easy. You just get this tracer die, and you either look at it under a microscope or you can quantify it just using a spectrometer. It's not that hard.
Yep, Casey.
Why are there so many pathogens? I mean, do you see this sort of number and complexity in other native crops?
I mean, I don't know that much about blueberries. I would expect it to also be similarly complex, but definitely like wheat is nowhere near this complicated. And I think it just partially has to do with just the environment that cranberries are grown in. It's really conducive for pathogens, but then also there have been these associations between the pathogens and the plant that go back like long periods of time. They just develop together. And yeah, I haven't really seen it that much. It's like every disease I looked at, it was like, oh, this is like super complicated. Like, okay, next disease, like, oh my gosh, this is even worse. I mean, it's no wonder you guys are able to do like good things, but
You still hate.
I mean, it makes it interesting. It's hard.
Parker.
One of the things intriguing about yourselves was that Massachusetts, because of our disease pressures, there's essentially no commercial organic production, very, very little.
Yeah, I was
Kind of
wondering about
elsewhere
that.
on a very large scale, but not here. And if you were able to identify one of those organisms that could potentially deal with some of our problems, those stimulants we talked about that can potentially increase the efficacy of those, are those considered to be organic production
Yeah, it's
materials
actually
also?
just it's a combination of different nutrients. That's like very glucose. It's really, I mean, for a commercial production, it might make the cost go up. Some of these amino acids are a little expensive, but it would still be considered organic.
I guess what you're wondering is if it's NOFA, or OMRI approved.
Yeah, I think it would still.
Sunil, did you have a question? Okay. Yep, Rod.
Just based on your list of all the things that could be put with,
Yeah.
And you said right up front you want to grow and everything, that's great. But where would you had to pick one or two, which probably would be the case.
Right.
And which of those two, without any of these guys know, where your passions lie and what you think you would try with that.
I mean, I think I'm personally interested in the community ecology, which would apply to a lot of the food not pathogens, especially. But then I would also say that, especially with people trying to manage cranberries in new ways, that would be a priority for me, just for the practical.
Absolutely, please.
Just on the, for the molecular identification, let's have the technique for identifying pathogens. How would coming here, and I that's important in this industry, you think of how hard would it be to set it up in this with UMass as a resource, but for cost-wise, resources, and knowing a little bit, knowing the pathogens that you have to work with, maybe find a way of understanding their code. How long a project do you have to be? How feasible?
I mean, I think it probably depends what type of question you want to ask. I I think that being able to quantify the pathogens is the most valuable amount of information, but for that you would need to develop primers, quantitative primers for each pathogen, and that might take a while, especially since they haven't all there's not sequence information available on all of them, and we might not even know what all of them are. There might be some that can't be cultured. But I think that so I understand that there's already the DNA array characterization that Dr. Russo is working on, that can detect what pathogens are there. It's just not that quantitative. So I think using a combination of that and then having these quantitative methods for some of the most important pathogens could get us to that point. I don't know exactly how long, but I don't think it's not that unreasonable. Like
Targets funding was a hot topic in federal grant agencies right now. We might be able to access funds.
yeah, I mean, I would probably talk to the diagnostic lab to see if they could use some of that equipment and maybe we could like put something together. Or if people here could use it, it's something like if I bought the equipment, I want it to be able to use, put in a place that's most useful. It's from what I understand, some of these machines like a few thousand.
See tomorrow.
Right. You have to see what Nick has. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that they have some of them at the Genomic Resource Center. I mean, I haven't had like a huge amount of experience working with these, so I think that there would be some like learning that goes along that might make it take longer. But the good thing about like the internet is that there's like, especially for this kind of thing, there's like, so much information available, and it's really easy to like ask people questions. And then like a lot of sequence information is just shared among the scientific community. So it seems doable for sure. It's just like a matter of how much you get time and money.
Watch a YouTube video on it.
When you think about these projects where they're like characterizing the entire life of the
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a similar concept.
Yeah.
Obviously the cost has to have come down some for that to be
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely has come down a lot, but it's still, especially for some of the sequencing, just like mass sequencing, it's still the sequencing itself doesn't cost a lot, but it's like all the processing that goes into it, especially if you have to do all these other steps that are involved. It can add up. But it's still useful, especially if I can find people that could use it also that we could.
Any other questions? Well, then, thank you very much. So Dr. Crane will be around for a few minutes, and then the lunch crew will ensconce her away for a little while.
John,
Hey.
is it possible just
That's
the application?
Yes.
By